So according to the EPA, 20 to 30% of our waste is organic material that could be landfilled. Now that could be 20 to 30% less waste in our landfills, making that material useful instead of useless. Today I want to educate you on the benefits of composting for our environment. Due to my experiences living and working in Canada, I'd like to use an example of the mandatory composting policies in British Columbia. Composting is easy to do, and the benefits associated can improve not only your health but your finances. I will share benefits of composting for the soil, air quality, and the economic gains for businesses. First, let's discuss the health gains found in your backyard. Composting is known to improve the soil quality, and it's easier to garden with. Now, what exactly is composting? According to the EPA's 2017 report, it's considered to be organic waste, such as wasted food, yard trimmings, manure, and wood chipping, such as to add bulk and texture. It's then stabilized and matured through a curing process to create this material called humus, which is a dark brown and black, earthy and soil-like texture. It returns valuable nutrients to the soil, and it gives us an opportunity to eat homegrown and local foods that have full advantage of the nutrients. It also provides structure for the earth, and in that sense, composting is better than soil in the sense that it helps prevent erosion and it's drought resistant. It decreases the need for fertilizers that have additives and phosphates in them, and some of them are even discreet, so you don't have to have a big bin like this. You can have composting in your backyards. Now that we've seen our personal benefits, let's look at our global impact. Doing our part in composting could help drastically reduce greenhouse gases. This could also reduce methane emissions from our landfills. Tim Allen in the Nelson Institute for Environmental Studies discussed the EPA's findings that 66 million tons of organic material was wasted in 2010. Now that is just extra yard clippings that could be composted, any kitchen scraps, anything that was prepared and not eaten was just thrown into the landfills. And only 3% of that 66 million was composted. 97 just sat there and contributed to 23% of methane emissions in the US that year. And that's a waste that didn't need to be landfilled in the first place. It could help us decrease our carbon footprint. According to a report done by Eureka Recycling in Minnesota, landfill waste in general contributes to 36.7% of methane emissions in the US. In Minnesota alone, that would be the equivalent of shutting down 20% of our coal-powered plants, reducing car usage by 2/3 statewide, and also decreasing home electricity by 75%. After looking at our environmental motivations, let's progress to our financial incentives. Composting is profitable for businesses because the government implemented incentives. The frequency of waste removal would decrease because the businesses wouldn't have to pay money on services such as removing them because it's now properly sorted and they wouldn't have to remove it because it wouldn't be so full so often. According to the Business Food Waste Disposal, the tipping fee or cost of removing organic material is $25 a ton versus $66 a ton for all other material. So if businesses just took the time to separate the material, they would have drastic financial gains and they would be able to get profit from some of this. Now, in 2016, BC implemented a ban of organic material from their landfills, which produced 450,000 tons of composted material, which as you can see is a 30% increase from the year prior. Now, Vancouver is a very populated city in British Columbia, and this is just showing the progression of their waste diversion. Right now, they're at 63% waste diversion, and by 2020, they aim to be at 80%. And personally, living in Canada, they wouldn't pick up your trash if it wasn't properly sorted. So they would leave it there, and it would rot and stink until you had no other option than you'd have to sort it. And they put these underneath your kitchen sinks, so that way you could do kitchen scraps and put them in there fairly easily. They would have liners that were plastic made out of cornstarch, so that you could just pick them up and put it in your outside bin. They made it so easy for you. And personally, just working in Canada, composting was reviewed at orientation. So not only is it really important for their businesses because they can save money, but they were very passionate about being environmentally conscious. These were stationed around the campuses with landfill, organic material, all their types of waste, as well as recycling. So they had diagrams on the top where that way you could see how to properly sort it, and there was no other excuse than to do it the right way. Now that we've seen the financial reasons and policies implemented in Canada, let's turn to America for our final destination. Today we learned what composting is and how we can do it in our homes and soil, how it's beneficial to our environment and our air quality, and how businesses can make economic gains by being environmentally conscious. Granted, composting is not yet something that we always have to deal with, but the dangerous environmental implications of not composting will eventually become something that we have to deal with. And now, as you can see, I'm a little diagram here, do the most and compost. And that's my stamp of approval. So
Will, did you get in before the speech or after? Of course. That was you.
Of course it was.
That was you. Well, we'll just trade. We'll just trade a couple of people. Let's see. I don't know. Who's here? Leslie, are you here?
yeah.
Why don't you do this speech that we just heard, and we'll drop Will down to evaluate David. All right.
I knew it would be the very first one that happened.
Yeah, that's the way it always works out. Go ahead. Just tell us what you thought.
I felt like it was good that you shared your experience of how you went to in Canada. Was Canada? Yeah, right? And then you went into depth about the whole thing, and then you brought a little bit back over here. And I liked the posters. Thank you.
Okay, well, there's a lot of stuff in here it's very good and solid, so you don't have a lot to worry about. The introduction was well planned. It started with a nice attention device with a statistic. You've got a good identification of your purpose statement. There's a justification and a preview of what's coming up. I do get the impression at the beginning that this could easily be a persuasive speech, and several spots in the presentation there are appeals that are persuasive in nature, so it is dancing a little bit on the edge of falling into a different category. Some of the things I think might have helped would be an explanation of more explanation in that first section about how composting is beneficial to the soil, how it works in the first place. I mean, in essence, it's a pile of garbage. Well, how does that becomes the thing that's on the right-hand side in that picture that you have, and why is that so much more valuable and effective? For example, you mentioned that it reduces erosion and reduces the use of pesticides. I'm like, well, why does it do that? I mean, I'm not saying that it's not true, but that's part of the explanation process, and a little bit more of that would have probably been better than some of the arguments about, you know, how bad it is for the environment to have all these other things going on. I'm going, well, that's a motivation for doing that as opposed to an explanation about how it does something. And so that's, like I said, a tricky line to walk at this particular point. I heard source citations from the very beginning. You were very consistent about citing that information. You even had a source for the definition that you provided for us for compost. I thought, okay, we got a definition of what this is. You know, it's garbage. it's organized topically. It's pretty straightforward. I thought the first transition was maybe a little ham-fisted and awkward, but you got better as you went along, and it sounded smooth. And at the end, there was a nice summary where you were going. The visuals are okay. Sometimes they rush by a little bit, and sometimes you don't even. There were some I couldn't see because you're standing in front of them, and you don't really make a reference to them. Like I've got the 4 trash cans lined up in one spot, and I'm going, okay, so something different goes into each one of those. I assume it's color coordinated, but I don't know exactly what. So when I'm sorting my garbage in Vancouver, apparently, like if I'm leaving the fast food restaurant that I'm eating at, I'm supposed to put my pickles that I picked off of my hamburger in this one, and the paper in this one, and the plastic in this one, and the something else in that fourth one, and I'm going, is that what's going on there? Like that would be my guess as to what's going on there, but you don't really talk about that. Like I said, that's just kind of background there. So I thought that was a little bit thin. For the most part, you do speak up and you look at the audience pretty regularly, although you've got so much information in the speech that you do have to depend on the notes a little bit more than you would like. That would be something that maybe more practice would help you overcome, and maybe you could use an outline to just prompt a couple of ideas more instead of having to have the whole statistic and quote written out on each point. But it wasn't a big problem, and remember, that's not something that we were heavily worried about at this particular point. And I like your cute little exit visual. I thought that was fun. Okay, thank you.